What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Post-Gazette Pirates YouTube channel. Pirates beat the Phillies by a final score of 3-2 here in Bradenton. We've got your three takeaways. Andrew, let's just jump right into it. I think there's an obvious starting point here.
Yeah, we should start with said starter and Jared Jones. Another solid start for him. I thought he looked good. I mean, got into the fourth inning, got to 4 ups, which is important at this stage of spring training. I don't know. What was your takeaway from his start?
I think the big takeaway is the changeup. It accounted for 3 of his 6 strikeouts on the afternoon. All of those coming in the second inning. The slider got 2 of those punch-outs, and then the four-seamer with the last one. But I really just like how the changeup's developed. I know all the focus has been on the new pitch, right? The two-seamer and how he can bring that along. But it doesn't, and I think I've said this before on this channel, it doesn't have to be the two-seamer. He just needs a third pitch. That can be the curveball, which we saw him use early on in his last outing. It could be the two-seamer, or it could be this changeup, which I thought was his third best pitch last season and something he probably should have thrown a little bit more.
Yeah, it's an interesting pitch because if you look at Jared Jones' trajectory, when he was in high school, he hadn't yet learned a slider. It was his changeup that was actually his secondary offering. He didn't turn to it too much, though, in the minors once he learned the slider because, well, that slider's pretty darn good,
yeah,
right?
Is.
So he's really familiar with the changeup. It's just that it hasn't played necessarily as well at the big league level because, it's not as polished as the fastball or the slider is. But if you can tunnel that off of a two-seamer, if you can add that into the mix, I think it could be a really dangerous weapon for him.
Yeah, another note to make of Jones. Pitches into the fourth inning, his first time getting 4 ups. Logged 68 pitches. That's the highest pitch count out of any Pirate so far this spring.
Yeah, for him to get to that level, it's very important. He's getting close to being ready to be, a starting pitcher. Maybe by the end of March, you can look at it and say, hey, he's going to be ready for that Miami series.
Yeah.
He's already built up. You can start to be a little bit more lackadaisical in terms of, hey, instead of it being every 5 days, maybe it's every 6, every 7. You can stretch him out in terms of how often he starts these spring training games. He's in a real good spot, as are a lot of these Pirates starting pitchers, which, knock on wood if you're a Pirates supporter, that's a good sign relative to a lot of other teams across the big leagues.
Adam Frazier made his return today. That'll be key number 2, or takeaway number 2. Got the first run batted in today, first of 3. Nick Gonzalez, Joey Bart with the other 2. But first time I believe we've seen Frazier since February 26th. Got the start at second base. Andrew, when these veteran guys don't appear a ton in spring, it's not a huge deal. They know what it takes to get ready for a season. But coming off of some injuries, Adam Frazier, I think he needs some reps this spring, and it's good to see him back out there.
Yeah, the back spasms was certainly something that's a little bit concerning for a guy that you signed to, a relatively modest contract over the offseason, but you view him as part of your plans for 2025. Very important to see him get back into action. Thought that, the most important takeaway maybe on my end from his group media scrum was him talking about just getting the legs underneath him. Kind of your point, Noah. He just needs game reps. He needs action. And it's not that he needs to play every day. This isn't a guy who needs, 150 spring training at bats. But he needs to see live pitching, needs to get out in the field, needs to bounce around, especially if he's going to embrace this utility role.
Yeah, and that's his role to lose right now. You're looking at this roster and what it will be comprised of, who it will be comprised of. He's one of those guys that you got to feel comfortable with, assuming he's going to make the opening day roster. They don't bring in a guy with that much experience and pay him over $1 million a year to get cut in Bradenton because of an injury. I think that they still have big plans for Adam.
Yeah, and he certainly has every reason to be one of those guys. I mean, in terms of the intangibles of what he can bring that other guys necessarily can't in said role, because I think there's other guys who are in competition for that, whether that's Billy Cook, Nick York. I would say Jared Trillo is pretty darn safe given what he accomplished last year. But you look at York and Cook versus Frazier, I don't know, maybe you don't necessarily have room for all of those guys. Maybe it's 2 out of 3. Maybe it's 1 out of 3. We'll have to see how the roster shakes out, but I would say that Frazier, what he brings to the table as a veteran, a guy who has been here the last time the Pirates had a winning record, you can't discount those things. You can't discount him being part of solid ball clubs over the last couple of years, like the Royals and the Orioles. So if he can stay healthy, that's a beneficial thing for the Pirates.
We'll close this video out with the guy who closed out today's game, Eddy Yean. 2 innings of scoreless relief from him. First inning was, I believe, 1, 2, 3. Got into a little bit of a jam. Nice play from Leolver Peguero at shortstop. Finishes it off. But Andrew, this is a guy that I feel like a lot of Pirates fans forgot about. He was a part of the Josh Bell trade all the way back in 2020. He was only 19 years old then. He's really grown since then. He's a big guy. Very interesting arm, and someone I think could be an arm that we see in the major leagues this year.
Yeah, Will Crow might have been the headliner of that Josh Bell trade a number of years ago, but I think Gene is somebody that you have to keep tabs on and monitor because he's basically performed at every level,
Yeah.
especially the last couple of years. I thought he was really impressive down in Altoona last year. So, is it going to be he spends the whole year in AAA with Indianapolis? Maybe. Does he get a cup of coffee at some point? Or does he become an important bullpen option for these guys at some point in the season? I think all those things are plausible. Anything is on the table for Yean. He's looked really good in spring training so far, and you can tell when manager Derek Shelton talks about it. He's very optimistic about what Yean can bring to the table, what separates him as a pitcher. I think he's a guy that, for every intent and purpose, he's got a chance to maybe not make this team, but a guy who could be on the team very, very soon.
Mike Burrow's on the bump tomorrow against the Atlanta Braves. Andrew, you'll be there. What are you looking for?
Yeah, he's got to bounce back.
Yeah.
The last time he was out there was a little bit shaky. This is an important spot for him because you look at the way that the rotation is kind of lining up. I know Bailey Falter had some comments after his appearance in New York of, hey, it's different this year with spring training. I kind of know I have a rotation spot. I'm not ready to 100% say that that's a given. I bring that up just to say that this is Bailey Falter's turn in the rotation. Him and Mike Burrows have kind of been operating on that same timeline. I think that's very intentional. If Burrows can bounce back and have a good start today, that can only help his case for trying to make this team out of camp, which is not a given. He's got to have some hurdles, but I'm very interested to get eyes on him because the last time he started, that was a split squad day where we were not in attendance.
He's Andrew Destin. I'm Noah Hiles. You can follow all of our work at post-gazette.com. And be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel at PG Pirates. We'll be back at the ballpark again tomorrow. Be sure to check out that video as well.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.